Focus. Focus. Damn it, it's not moving. Empty my mind, shouldn't be too hard. Oh my god, it's moving, it's not moving. Damn it! Fishing wire. Hello there. This week I watched Star Wars' return to the big screen, The Mandalorian and Grogu, directed by Jon Favreau and starring Pedro Pascal as the eponymous Mandalorian, Jeremy Allen White as Rotter the Hutt, Sigourney Weaver as Ward, Johnny Coyne as Lord Janu, and yes, Martin Scorsese as Hugo the Shopkeeper. And the film follows the Mandalorian's quest to rescue Rotter the Hutt in exchange for information on Imperial remnants. You know, it was pretty fun to see Star Wars back on the big screen, even if it never really left the public conscious. Hearing Ludwig Göransson's signature Mandalorian theme and seeing Mando himself in the cinema, and the promise of a fun, low-stakes, family-friendly adventure really got my hopes up that this would be the franchise's triumphant comeback. Unfortunately, this film quickly became one of the most unnecessary movies I've seen in a long time. I try to fairly evaluate each of these films in a vacuum and not let my preconceived experience with the franchises impact anything. But even without having invested time in the 3 prior seasons of television, anybody else could see how meaningless this film was. It presents itself as an accessible entry point for younger and or casual audiences, but in doing so becomes so afraid of alienating literally anybody that it ends up doing nothing noteworthy, or dare I say different. On one hand, the practical craftsmanship and effects work is still very impressive, almost worth the price of entry. The effort behind every practical set or vehicle was evident, and it's good to see that that hasn't changed for Star Wars. Even the intentionally janky, obvious puppets never detracted any enjoyment, nor distracted me. They were charming in an old school way as a deliberate homage to the humble origins of Star Wars, and I often preferred seeing them to the weird, blobby CGI fellas that populated the rest of the film. The stunt work was also consistently solid, and credit absolutely needs to go to the stunt performers playing Mando for what feels like 95% of the movie, Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder. Again, trying to review this outside of the context of the show, I found it incredibly unsatisfying how none of the Mandalorian's own, much more interesting supporting cast appeared in this movie, even when there were multiple telegraphed instances where they could have. The plot itself was really nothing either, and the film has so little faith in its audience that every dialogue scene has the characters repeat the same point 3 times. You absolutely will get sick of hearing Rotto mention his father Jabba the Hutt by the end of this film. On top of that, this is probably the most obvious recent example of a film that started as a TV series and was reworked for the big screen for some reason. Instead of 3 distinct acts or a competent structure, you instead get 6 little episodes that would normally make up maybe 2 arcs of a streaming show, with a very hilariously jarring ending at the direct midpoint that signals the end of the first 3 episodes and the start of the next. As for the cast, Pedro Pascal does an alright job at voice acting the Mandalorian still, and I was glad they were able to get him back on set to show his face, even if once. But you kind of get the impression he's bored by the rest of the role a bit. Similarly bored and boring were Jeremy Allen White and Sigourney Weaver, the 2 performances even more phoned in and forgettable. I can't tell if it's unmotivated directing or the star's complete lack of interest in the script, though I wouldn't blame them for the latter. Despite Disney's somewhat tumultuous reputation with Star Wars, I did try going into this with an open mind, and I even enjoyed most of the first act, but unfortunately the rest of the film becomes the blandest, greyest, flattest thing I've ever seen, even for a Disney product. I'd like to be able to say this justified being a movie, but it really didn't, and keeping it as an 8-episode show may have prevented most of its problems. I give The Mandalorian and Grogu 5 thumbs out of 10. That's a wrap, so thanks for watching. You will like and subscribe. I said you will like and subscribe. Damn it. Maybe you guys are a bit less weak-minded than I thought.